All right.
Okay,
So we are doing.
Let's hold it up. Let's hold it up.
We're doing Dark Knight 3: The Master Race. This came out on September 19th. This is new.
It's new. And there's, like I said before, there's not much point in us reviewing it because if you're a hardcore comics fan, a DC fan, a Batman fan, if you're any of these things, you've already got it.
Yeah.
So, but Batman Dark Knight Master Race, I had the feeling, I'm going to go back over what we were talking about before, because I had the feeling that when you first read this, and you said this was a birthday gift to yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
This came out on my birthday.
Yeah. And when I asked you about it, you said it was great or good, and I thought that you were going to probably rave about it or give it a 100% thumbs up, you know, which would be 2, I guess. But then when I read it and started to nitpick it, you started to agree with some of my nitpicks. So where do you stand right now on The Dark Knight, The Master Race?
So I like it. Again, it's not as good as the original Dark Knight Returns. It's definitely better than Dark Knight Strikes Again. I don't think anybody has anything to say that's about that.
Yeah, I would say it is better
comic,
than Dark Knight
That comic book
Strikes
just
Again.
comes across as kind of lazy at points. This one also comes across as lazy at points,
Absolutely.
but only when Miller's drawing it.
Basically, yes.
The main thing that makes this one better than that one is that Miller is not drawing it all the time.
Yes, if Frank Miller had been hired to draw this entire comic, it would have been a travesty that would have been laughed out of the comic book stores. And I probably didn't want to jump right into the Miller art thing, and I understand that there's the whole Krusty the Clown thing about when Krusty was asked why he put his name on such a horrible camp, he burst into tears and said, "They backed a dump truck full of money up to my house. I'm only human." And I understand Frank Miller's only human, and they backed a dump truck up full of money up to his house. But honestly, Frank Miller, if I could speak to you directly for a moment, if you ever watch this video, you've had a great career. I'm a huge fan. I became a fan of yours way back when you were first on Daredevil. I followed your career since the beginning. And if you don't want to draw something, don't take the job.
Just pay someone else to do it.
Just tell them that you don't want to do it. Don't take the money and then hack out some really lazy, crappy looking art, because at this point you're just damaging your own reputation. There are people that read this that never read Daredevil that think that that's the best you can draw.
Yeah.
So if you're proud of that, fine, go ahead and do it. But I just shocked and appalled by how lazy Frank Miller's art was consistently in this. And what's even worse, not even worse, but it almost seems like they told Andy Kubart to copy Frank Miller's style from the first one, which he does to a certain extent. And it's like they should probably let him draw it Andy Kubart's style. But
I mean, I like the way that it's drawn in this. I mean,
except for Frank Miller.
Yeah, except for Frank Miller. He did a pretty good job of copying Frank Miller's style.
He did a pretty good job, but he's such a good artist on his own.
They're definitely doing some. I think they're definitely coloring it through computer means, but that's just how you do it.
Well,
now.
that's
we don't do cell animation anymore. We don't color things by hand anymore. We use computers. That's just how it is.
Yeah. So leave it for some indie person to hand color things in. But one of my major gripes about this is the whole idea of the Dark Knight universe. Because it seems to me that the original Dark Knight graphic novel was not supposed to have sequels.
Yeah, it was definitely a one-off kind of thing.
It was definitely, and it was supposed to be like an ending, like a capper to Batman's career.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you can never write the ending story, so that's what Frank Miller set out to do, was to write a story about Batman as an old man. Now, should I go ahead and give a big spoiler?
Yeah, go right ahead, yeah.
Okay, this is a big spoiler. You can just mute the sound if you don't want to hear it. Batman regains his youth in this book. And first of all, the timeline is very confusing because I thought Batman Returns was set in the near future. Okay, because when that book came out, obviously Batman is middle-aged in the regular comic, but then he's much older in Batman Returns. So logically, that would be in the future. But now it seems like the new Dark Knight universe is set firmly in the modern present.
Remember, the original Dark... So here's the weird thing. I'm not entirely sure about this either. Because, so Dark Knight Returns is set in the 80s. Because Reagan's in it.
Right, right.
Reagan is president in that.
Yeah.
So it might be set a few years into it. It's thinking set a few years after.
So
like,
okay, so that's it. It's not really set in the future, but what it is it's taking the timeline seriously and saying Batman was an adult back in the late 30s.
Yeah.
And therefore he's a senior citizen in the 80s.
Yeah.
So it's aging Batman as if he had an actual
exactly
human life.
Um,
But now here it is 2017, and this is set in the present, and
yeah. I'm not entirely sure. They're going. It seems kind of screwy to me, but then again, we also know that superheroes don't age at consistent time rates, so it doesn't really matter. I'm probably just putting too much nitpickiness into it.
Well, I mean, the thing is that all the Batman comics that are out there that are coming out on a monthly basis, none of them have Batman as a senior citizen.
Yeah.
So if the Dark Knight universe is the one that has him as a senior citizen, then that one would have to be somewhat in the future of the other ones, logically.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's no reason why all this stuff needs to fit together necessarily. But there's also no reason why the Dark Knight universe needs a youthful Batman. Because the first two books had a senior citizen Batman, and he's senior citizen throughout all of this one, too. But I just don't like the idea of making this into a universe, because it's like it was a one-off graphic novel, and the only reason there's part 2 and part 3 is because money talks.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems very clear that there's no artistic reason to create these books.
Yeah.
I mean, they did the best they could with the concept, but the idea to do these books came from the top that said, do another Dark Knight book, we need the money.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, am I crazy? But that seems to be it. Is there any other reason in there?
So we should probably talk about the good stuff that this book does.
There is good stuff in it.
Because it is in there.
A lot of good plot twists in here.
Yeah. There's some good. It's drawn pretty well.
More or
for
less.
the most part.
Except for Frank Miller.
Right, except for Frank Miller. Once again, because Frank Miller did write it, he gets to plan out.
He co-wrote it. That's another lazy
he
thing. Why did he need a co-writer for this one? He didn't need a co-writer for the other ones.
But so you get all the Frank Miller tough guy stuff that happens in it.
Right.
Frank Miller's Batman is
he's a badass.
Yeah, he's a pretty badass guy.
Yeah, although he hasn't done much Batman outside of the Dark Knight.
Well, he did. So he did Batman Year One, and he did All Star Batman.
Yeah.
All Star Batman. Batman's just kind of an asshole for like 10 issues straight. But
And Batman Year One, probably his best thing outside of Batman Returns.
Yeah.
But
no, definitely. So we have. I think we should probably just say there's. Yeah. Well, we already did the spoiler warning, but it's like So we have things like Batman using kryptonite and then kicking the crap out of Kryptonians and stuff like that.
Right. Right.
There's basically the Atom makes Kandor big, but it turns out half of Kandor, like most of Kandor, has been killed by this one fascist regime of.
It's like a cult. It's like a religious cult.
Kandor. These cult Kandorians who are now going to try to take over the world.
Yeah. Well, and I have total mixed feelings about this whole Kandor angle, because what they did is they resolved the whole Kandor issue once and for all. Kandor, unless you time travel or something, Kandor is now out of the DC continuity as far as this is concerned.
Yeah.
Because there's no good Kandoran. Their city was destroyed.
Yeah, basically.
There's no more Bottle City, and the good Kandorans were all massacred and wiped out by the bad Kandorans, who all get beat up by the superheroes and wiped out.
Yeah.
So there basically are no more Kandorans after this book, and I have very mixed feelings about that. On the one hand, it's a useless artifact from the 50s and 60s that doesn't really fit in to comics anymore. On the other hand, it's fun, so why kill it off completely?
For sure. I mean, we have there's pretty cool stuff like basically like an angry mob beating the crap out of a bunch of cult Kandorians.
Yeah, after they've been weakened by Batman's kryptonite. Yeah. But see, that scene is actually one of my major points of contention, because that should have been the end of the book.
Yeah.
I don't understand why the bad guys are allowed to escape from that scene. That should have been the end of them right there.
And that's one thing I don't quite get, because one of the main points is of the original Dark Knight Returns is that You know, all these superheroes with all these powers. Without their powers, they're nothing.
Right.
And it's like anybody can kick the crap out of them if they don't have their superpowers.
Right. A mob can kick the crap out of you without your superpowers.
Yeah. So I think that should be the end there. It goes on a little longer than expected.
Yeah. It does have good. We were trying to think of good stuff in it. I know the whole Atom subplot.
Yeah, the Atom subplot is pretty good. Someone sabotages one of the Kandors sabotages Atom's gear, and he starts like he's continuously shrinking.
Right. So he shrinks down to the atomic level.
Yeah.
But then he comes back at a great moment.
He comes back at the end.
His comeback is good.
Yeah.
You know. And there's little things that are good. I'm not really a fan of the Superman Wonder Woman relationship, and so I'm kind of bored by the subplotting of.
I am personally, but
yeah, some people like that. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I'm not against it. But it's just
Yeah.
It just seems kind of messy. Don't really know where they're going with that, and they didn't really go anyplace definite with it. They kind of left it how they found it, which is what comics usually do. They usually circle back around and leave things how they found them.
As for the strange things, I'm not entirely sure. This is a thing that I always wonder about. How strong is Green Lantern? Because nobody ever explains how powerful Green Lantern is.
Yeah, he's like godlike
in most universes, he's not as powerful as Superman is. But is he the second most powerful person in the Justice League? Because there's 3 fully powered Kryptonians who just sort of ceased to exist after Green Lantern hits them with one being.
Yeah, so I don't know.
I don't know what.
It's confusing. I don't know how powerful Green Lantern is either. If Green Lantern had enough willpower and had enough courage, could he create his own universe and be god of it with his ring? That's my question. Could Green Lantern create a rock big enough that he himself could not lift it? That's the question.
Green Lantern, I feel like in the comic, as with the last few comics, is that Frank Miller likes to take these superpowers and just sort of amplify them to the nth degree.
Yeah.
Which is why Superman can absorb solar energy from the ground.
Yeah.
Like he can in Dark Knight Returns, and Flash can run through entire states in less than a second.
Yeah.
In the like he can in the last comic.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But what Frank Miller is trying to do, I think, is trying to tell the stories that don't normally get told by taking this to the extreme limits. And that was the whole idea of Batman Returns, is to show what would happen when Batman was a decrepit old man.
Yeah.
And it turns out he's not quite so decrepit. He's kind of a badass old man. But before we run out of things to talk about here, let's just mention the cameos. Because as you said, the original one had Reagan in it. And this one has a whole new bumper crop of cameos.
He loves to do that.
Some of them work and some of them don't.
TV, those talking news show type
Frank
things.
Miller likes to do that. I would just point out that a lot of these cameos really dated. And just like Reagan dated the first one.
Yeah.
And a lot of the cameos are not even obvious unless you're the sort of news junkie who watches a lot of news. Like they have the Fox and Friends set there. Well, Jacob recognized that, but only because I am one of those news junkies that watches a lot of news. I don't think most people would recognize that. Wolf Blitzer is in there in a tiny, tiny little panel that I don't think most people would recognize. Glenn Beck is in a couple panels that I don't think the average person would recognize. I only recognized him because he's shedding tears in one. And I know that's something that people that hate Glenn Beck always bring up the tears, because there were several moments where he got all teary-eyed on his old show. So that's like a marker that people use, but I don't think most people are going to recognize the Glenn Beck. There's a hideous drawing of Kellyanne Conway where they went out of their way to try and be mean and draw her like she's an old witch. But because they were so mean, I don't think most people recognize that cameo.
Really didn't.
I only recognize it because of the hairstyle and because I got the drift of where they were going with the cameo.
Yeah. And then
the Trump cameos are not bad.
There's a
couple of Trump cameos, and Trump actually looks more like Trump than most of the other cameos look like the people. So
Hillary's cameo looks like Hillary. There's only one Hillary.
Well, Hillary's cameo is pretty hideous, though. Although I won't say that's far off. But I'm not saying that's not a political comment. I'm just saying it's the way it's drawn. And she's only in there for one word. She says one word, and it's like, okay, if you stuck a cameo picture in of someone and they have one word, I don't know why that's in there.
Well, that's the problem too. Is that, but the Dark Knight Strikes Again also has lots of cameos. I'm sure that a lot of those cameos are for very specific things, but I can't place some of them because they're people who just sort of went back into obscurity. I don't know who some of those people were because, like, it came out in like 2002. I was like 5.
Well, and the thing is, literally in 10 years' time, I believe this book will still be for sale.
Yeah.
In 10 years' time, yeah, we'll be able to recognize Trump.
Yeah.
But, I mean, are the people on Fox and Friends going to be the same people? Is anyone going to remember Glenn Beck? Is anyone going to remember Kellyanne Conway or Wolf Blitzer?
A lot of things can happen in 10 years. All these people could have been replaced by then, honestly.
Well, yeah. I mean, how many people have been replaced already? I mean, it's... Yeah, but I mean, and especially newsreaders, because newsreaders don't have that long of careers. It's like talking heads on a panel. I mean, those could be completely different people next year, for all you know, So yeah, I thought the cameos worked pretty good, but I'm not really down with the whole idea of including them. I don't know if they add enough to be worth dating the material that much.
They're fun for right now.
Yeah, they're fun
but
for now.
They can be confusing later.
They're very topical, and if you're going to put out something that ultimately turns into, a hardcover book, and that's going to be on your bookshelf for a while, you don't necessarily want a cameo that dates itself after 5 years. Which is, I felt like most of the cameos were not worth doing, that they probably should have been made up presidents and made up news people, because then you can, craft them exactly how you want them to be.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to come up with something that kind of sounds like something that person would say. So that's my opinion on the cameos, but they totally do date it to like a very specific year.
Yeah.
Like this year. And in fact,
you can very much tell that this case started coming out in 2016.
In fact, I would say this book is already out of date because Glenn Beck already right now does not deserve a cameo. Because his career is falling into obscurity so fast that he was literally bigger personality when they started working on the book than he is now.
Yeah.
So I would say one of the cameos is already undeserved. So, but that's my take on it. But yeah, the Master Race, they're all Supermen from Bottle City of Kandor.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else to say on this?
Don't think so. I
hear the phone ringing.
I would say that I would give it probably a 3.5 stars.
Out of 5?
Yeah. 3.5 or 4.
I'm going with 3.5 too. Yeah, I got enough nitpicks that I'm going to go with 3.5, and I just don't like the idea of a Dark Knight universe. So next thing you know, it'll be a Dark Knight monthly comic.
You should read all of them. Once again, Dark Knight Strikes Again is not great. I would say that the thing that makes Dark Knight Strikes Again at all interesting is the fact that they have both the Question and Plastic Man, who are two of my favorite characters in it.
That are obscure. Yeah. Well, that's ringing for the second time. Well, I better go.
Yeah.
But that's it for this. I would say definitely read The Dark Knight Returns and then decide if you want to read anything.
Exactly.
Here, do you want to turn this on?
All right. Yeah.
Thank you.